All right, we're going to let you in on a little secret. Before we record any podcast or any live training inside the Elevated Life Club or anything where we have to turn our energy on, Chris and I have this simple little trick that we use that just, boom, instantly brings us alive and ready to go. And today we've had some wild shit go down. Both of our animals have had a seizure, and it's been like nonstop crazy shit just stopping us from recording the podcast. So we were like, holy fuck, it's almost Friday. We've got to make this happen because we are dedicated to our community and sharing the wisdom. So we've set aside a little time because we have a really important topic to share with you about our 10-year vegan journey. But before we jump into that, we've got to turn our energy on. And I thought it would be fun to share that little tip and trick with you. So you ready for this, Chris?
Let's do it.
All right. Chi-chi's up.
Cheese up.
That's it. We say chi-chi's up, we lift our chest up, we suck that energy in, and we give our body that command that, hey, it's time to turn it on, we're ready to go, it's time to rock and roll. Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 16 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation and working with thousands of clients, we've found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset that aligns with your authenticity, integrity, and soul purpose, regardless of your past.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness. We don't shy away from the taboo topics like sex, hypnosis, meditation, and exploring altered states of consciousness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be. All right, let's dive into it. We have talked about being vegan in the past. One of our first episodes, and a really popular one, is how we made that transition from being paleo, actually, and keto before that, to a vegan, plant-based, whole food lifestyle. We even dabbled with raw for a little while as well. It's been 10 years since we made that decision to ditch the processed chemicals and all the crap that makes your energy just like womp womp. And it's been a beautiful journey that I did not expect to be this long. You know, Chris and I occasionally check in and say, hey, you want to keep doing it? Are we good? You want to check the science? How do we feel? Let's check our blood. Okay, everything's good. So in this episode, we're going to share some of our tips and common mistakes that we have learned over the 10 years being vegan, where people tend to fail when they make that transition.
You know, and it's important to be thinking about, I think about my health sort of as an experiment, because even if something works for somebody else, or even the science says it's a certain way, or even you see just, there's so much information out there on what people think you should be eating, on what people think you shouldn't be eating, on literally every topic and nuance about calories, about carbs, about everything. And it's overloading for most of us. I mean, it's overloading for me, and I like to get in the nitty-gritty details. And so what I recommend that you do is that you start to experiment. Figure out what starts working for you. We tried this as an experiment. There was nothing more than that. We were going to do it for 30 days. And I said, for 30 days, I can pretty much do it. It doesn't really matter. I could fast for 30 days. That'd work fine too. So let's try it. Let's see how we feel during that 30 days. And that's exactly what we did. And it was a miracle that at the end of the 30, we didn't go back, because I would have never thought, as a Texan, as a let's go eat barbecue. Barbecue's our life. I mean, it's exactly what we know, what we're used to. So come out with an experimental attitude. Try stuff out. If there's something that works for you, stick with it for a while. And the biggest thing that I think most people screw up going into any of this is they don't have any information. They are not being prepared enough, because this is going to be a big change. Anytime you go to any kind of diet, and when I mean diet is the foods that you eat. I don't mean like you necessarily counting calories and all that. I mean that whatever selection you're making or whatever things you're excluding from your lifestyle, you have to be extremely prepared. So often we have certain convenience foods that we all eat. There's certain things that we're going to go to the pantry, we're going to go to the fridge, we're going to grab them first. Maybe it's chips, maybe whatever it is. And so you have to figure out what that's going to be when you start to eat a different way. What is going to be that replacement? What's going to be that thing that you automatically gravitate to? Because that's going to be the first place that you slip. You're so used to habitually doing that that's where you mess up.
It's true, especially going out to eat, because before we never even thought to look at what the menu was before. We'd be like, oh, cool new restaurant so-and-so recommended. Let's go. We'll find something. But now eating plant-based food, that's the first thing that you do before you go out to eat. You check the quality of ingredients. What are the options? Do they even know what the fuck vegan means? Because oh my gosh, I'll never forget going into that one Thai restaurant and she was like, are cashews vegan? I'm like, oh, I can't trust a word you say. I don't know what's in that food. So you have to be really mindful and prepare yourself for, am I going to be able to eat? Or if I'm invited to a family function and they don't have it, can I prepare myself, like eat beforehand? I mean, I ate before my own surprise birthday party. I didn't know everyone was throwing me a surprise party that night. And when they told me the restaurant we were going to, I was like, okay, can't eat anything there. We made a whole freaking stir fry and ate it. And then when we went and got ice cream on the way, we're like, fuck it, we'll be late. It's not really, it'll be fine. Oh my God, it ended up being my surprise birthday party. And so
everyone was waiting for us to eat. Everyone was waiting for us to get there.
It was a 5-course meal at a brand new vegan restaurant that hadn't opened yet. And I had been stalking them all year long. Like, hey, are you open yet? Hey, are you open yet? And my assistant was so kind to like sneak attack and get in touch with them. And they did this soft grand opening for my birthday. They literally got the chairs in the day before my birthday party. They made this custom Brittany's birthday menu, literally 5 courses. And I'm like trying to eat bites of all of it, but I'm like full because I prepared. I was prepared because I've known how it feels to be in those situations where you almost feel left out or you're like, I can't participate. But the truth is that was 10 years ago. Now you can eat a salad pretty much freaking anywhere.
Yeah, it's beautiful what they've got now. I mean, what you can grab at the store. I mean, they have literally products for everything. And so many restaurants have figured out that I think plant-based is going to be around for a while. People are hopping onto this. There's a lot of companies who've decided to put out food and make their products. I mean, even the regular companies. We're talking about just regular old companies that you've seen for years and years and years have decided we want to get in that game too. There's money to be made. There's people who, we can serve in that way. So it's cool. I mean, Walmart sells organic. I mean, do you remember going through Walmart and being like, are they going to sell stuff that like we can actually buy?
Heck yeah. And I remember, this is a funny story. We usually don't eat out because we like to control the ingredients that we're eating. But we finally were like, you know what? People are adopting this plant-based lifestyle. Let's like indulge. We stopped on my way. My mom lives out in the country. Okay. So there's not a lot of food options. So we're like, we're going to stop at Panda Express. They have this new Beyond Meat orange chicken. Like, let's go for it. So we roll up and we're waiting in line. We finally get up there and she's like, hi, would you like to try the new Beyond chicken, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, yeah, actually we would. Like, we're all pumped up, like, yeah, like vegans are getting their day in the sun. And she's like, oh, sorry, well, we're out of that. I was like, no. I mean, talk about a punch in the gut. But this kind of makes me think of it with more and more vegan coming about, or plant-based, or whatever label you want to give it. I want to make sure that you're not making it feel like a religion or a cult. When we were in CrossFit, everyone's like, you know how you're in a cult, a CrossFit cult, is when you talk about it with each other, like all the time. Like there was all these funny little sayings about, that particular culture. And the same is true for any thing you get yourself into. But it's so important to not be preachy and not push your ideals on other people. This is true for all things, but this tends to be one of those common situations that I hear from, let's say, non-vegan people. Like, I hate how they're just like always bringing cucumbers to the party. Like, ugh, gross.
It's amazing that veganism strikes such a chord with so many people. I think it's because it's so against the grain of what we sort of all grew up.
Literally, we're eating the grains.
And so the big thing to do is make sure that this is for you. And the big part is make sure that you're educated about it, because you're going to get the questions. You're going to get the where do you get your protein from. And this is any diet. And I tell you what, the biggest diffuser that I found, because it took me a while, it's not enough to argue with people. You're never going to change anybody's mind. People are just saying that just to kind of rattle you. It's not really like, let's get informed here. It's not that kind of a conversation, usually. And so what you want to do is oftentimes just say, you know what, this is what my doctor recommended me. And I will tell you, a lot of people were quiet after that. And be like, you might want to do some research on it too. And so if you can leave it and push a space in between it, if you can give yourself a buffer. For years, we would show up at different parties, different family gatherings, and people would look at us like we're crazy. They're like, what in the world are you eating? It's amazing now because there's so many documentaries out, and that's a great way to start getting informed. Documentaries, books, the usual. It's so great now because people are catching on. They're trying to realize that maybe I should eliminate the processed foods, which is what this was about. It wasn't necessarily so much about eliminating meat for us, so that became part of it as of the experiment, but it was more about getting rid of processed foods. It's about what are the ingredients that we're actually using. We know that processed foods aren't great for the body. We know that like cooking in seed oils and all that stuff, not good for the body either. And so it's really important to start looking at what am I putting into me? What kind of fuel am I going to give myself so I can really live and thrive at my best? We were listening to a talk just last night, and it was a doctor on there, and he was saying that it was 99% of what he did was write prescriptions. He's like, that was what I would recommend 99% of the time. He said, and now I've changed my tune, and now it's 99% of what I recommend to my patients are changes in their diet. And it was amazing that he was saying he was getting the same kind of transformations by just having people eat healthier food, real basic stuff, not complicated anything.
And that's the next point, is that it's important to not mistake, quote, vegan food for healthy food. Oreos classify as a vegan food, but we can all look at that package and know that that is a sugar bomb and like bad news waiting to happen. So just because it's labeled vegan doesn't mean it's healthy. As Chris mentioned, we were really trying to eliminate the processed chemicals and anything we couldn't pronounce in the food. Our idea was, does it grow from the ground? And at the time of the experiment, we were trying to go alkaline. We were trying to only eat foods that were high alkalizing because we found that helps to create a healthy environment in your internal system so that you stay healthy and fight against disease. So we thought this would be a really powerful way for us to experiment with trying new foods that help lift our energy.
So the great part about this is that it doesn't take a fad diet to make you realize that whole foods are the best. I mean, they've always been the best. They'll always be the best. And so it's really important that no matter what kind of diet you stick to or when it ends up working for you, maybe this is not for you, find something that's whole foods. Find more things that are sustainably grown, things that are grown from the ground, like Britt said, things that, you could pick off of a tree, not stuff that's lab tested. You don't want that. You want the regular stuff that's been around for millennia. And that typically is what, brought us to where we are. And so it's really important for you to get back to that and realize that just the term vegan is not always going to be that great. When someone says, hey, that's vegan food, that doesn't necessarily mean healthy. It could mean literally anything. And there are a lot of terms out there that they use in products once you go this way, like natural and stuff like that, that don't really mean anything in brands. They're not regulated. And so any kind of marketer can just slap on any kind of term. It's always really important for you to switch over the box and take a moment to read through and say, what is this stuff? Is this stuff that I recognize? And look it up. And it's once you start doing that, you figure out some of the ingredients are not healthy for us anymore. And a lot of times, if you're trying to figure out is something vegan or not, on the back of the package, it always says at the very bottom, just under the ingredients, it says contains. And so that's to alert people of food allergies. And interestingly enough, a few of these are common things for vegans. So it would say contains milk, contains eggs, contains wheat, contains soy. And so you would be able to know, like, okay, this product's not going to be for me. And then you can keep moving on. And that way, even though sometimes things say plant-based, they're not. All that is just what people add on to packages. You always have to flip it over and say, okay, does this align with what I want to be doing right now? And just, it's a great habit to have. Don't just look at just the nutritional information. That's not enough anymore. That's where we used to be. And we were successful that way. I lost a lot of weight doing that way, counting calories and doing that thing. That stuff works for dieting. That's different. That's when you're talking about losing weight specifically. And that's different than changing up exactly how you eat. That's eating less and maybe moving more and really, being on top of that game. Instead, what this is about is sort of changing your whole paradigm to how can I just include more plants in my life? How can I include more vegetables? Can I have a couple more salads? Can I eat a couple more carrots? How can I make that into something amazing? The other part that's really beautiful right now is that there are a lot of really good chefs who've come out with excellent cookbooks. They've come out with amazing resources. Every YouTube, Instagram, TikTok has videos available where you can learn how to make literally anything you have ever wanted. We had mock chicken and dumplings the other day, all with Whole Foods. We had there's also pizza, burgers, you name nachos, you name it. Someone has figured out how to do it. So just search for it.
Yeah, we've had chicken and waffles that are vegan. I don't think there's a food to this point. Now, the only one that hasn't come exactly quite it is bacon. I feel like we have had everything veganized except for that. I mean, we have had that, but there's just,
it's not bacon.
you just can't get that.
Yeah, and so it's important to realize that not everything's going to be you just have to eat olives and you're just munching on lettuce the whole time. It's not just rabbit food. There are amazing cuisines that have come out now. You've got big chefs like Gordon Ramsay who have now come out and veganized a lot of their meals, and so it's doable. When we first started this, it sucked. I mean, we didn't know how to cook, which is probably the biggest tip you could ever have is start cooking. Start learning how to cook really basic meals. And what I mean by that, if you can make oatmeal, if you can make muffins, if you can make pancakes, we make waffles, if you can make pastas, rice dishes, things like that.
Some Buddha bowls,
smoothies, some soups, you've really nailed it already. And all of those things are really basic. They take really basic ingredients. It's not that expensive. You can buy it all in bulk. So this could work with even multiple people. This is much simpler than people make it.
And it's reclaiming your health. This is taking your health into your hands by when people ask me about, insurance, life insurance and all of that, my response is always the food that I choose to put in my body is a huge part of that insurance. So it starts with your choice in the grocery store, and that food that you choose is the fuel that your body needs to be able to operate. And that's our next tip, is to pay attention to the fiber, because when you start to increase that plant intake, that whole food intake, when your fiber goes up, there's a lot of things that go down in the funky town in the bathroom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, your body takes a little bit of time to get used to all this. For most of us, we have really low fiber diets. We're so fixated and concentrated on how much protein we have, even though most of us are not professional athletes. If you are a professional athlete, that matters a lot. But if you're not a professional athlete, not so much. And so a lot of us don't have enough fiber. We're not pushing enough stuff through our bodies. And when you eat natural foods that aren't processed, all that fiber's there. That's why a lot of times when you drink fruit juice, it sucks for you. It's basically straight sugar. And instead, if you drink something with the pulp still in there, you get that natural fiber. If you were to eat like 25 apples, I mean, hell, it would suck. But you could drink 25 apples worth of apple juice. It'd be easy for you. And so it's really important to start realizing that when I eat regular foods, that's going to have to come out of me as well. I know it sounds weird, but this to me is the biggest drawback. And it's because you're going to be farty. You're going to be hanging out with people and be like, dude, these farts are coming on. I don't know what to do.
Here's your pro tip. Soak your beans before you cook them.
And even wash them. If you get beans out of a can, you definitely want to rinse those beans so they're not bubbly anymore. You'll get water bubbles. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about once you do it. And so wash those off. People will like you a lot more.
Do everyone a favor.
The other thing I want to mention real quick is a resource that we use all the time. And I think it's probably one of the best resources we've found. And that is, if you're going to go out, or if you're going to make a trip out of town, especially if you make a trip out of town, you need to be checking happycow.net. Happy Cow is probably the best resource for finding vegan food. It's sort of like a teeny tiny Yelp, but not scammy. And so you can get on there and they will tell you what's the highest rated. It will give you a link to the menu. It will tell you what times they open, all that kind of stuff. But it's all in one little section and they're color coded. So it'll say like, this is an all vegan restaurant. This is one that serves all kinds of food, but they have vegan options. This is one that only serves vegetarian. It gives you all that kind of information. And so when we go to a new place, like say we're going to drive to our next retreat. Our next retreat's in Colorado. What I'm going to do is pull the map up and I'm going to look at every major town we're going to drive through, especially at like, let's say 3, 4, 5-hour intervals, and say, where are we going to get out? Where are we going to eat? How's that going to work? And so our trip changes based on and we'll go off-road a little bit. The beautiful part about people who do plant-based food at all is normally they've got a story. And to me, I think this is the best part of the whole deal. It's not just, some of the health benefits that you get for adding plants to your diet. The biggest part of this is meeting people in the community who have beat disease and things like that. It's super gut-wrenching. It's not something that I thought would be part of this journey, but it's something that if a person owns a restaurant, especially if you find the raw vegan places, those places are even more serious, and you'll always find an owner back there who's overcome cancer or overcome something crazy. And they'll have this really intense story that they give you. And I'll tell you, that is the beautiful. Getting to sit down with them for a few minutes and enjoy a pesto sandwich or whatever it is that they made for you, it is part of the most rewarding piece, because we all connect with food. I mean, it's the biggest part of every time you've ever celebrated in your life, it's normally over food. When people do big gatherings, they gather over food. It's the one single commonality with like almost every single thing we do. It's at the weddings. Your birthday has a big deal because
It's
you
like
got
how
a
my
cake.
grandmother would say, I love you when you would come over.
And so it's really important to remember that a lot of people are used to giving to you and receiving maybe from you through food. And so when you make big changes, they may not be ready for that. So that's another part of the judgy part, is that they may not understand exactly what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it, why you should do this. I mean, my grandmother was like, dude, what are you guys doing?
I know, for years she's like, what the hell? Like, I want you to eat this food. And then eventually she like learned to make us an avocado salad. I mean, it was like a deconstructed guacamole, but it was so sweet because that's when she started to put effort in towards, okay, you've committed to this lifestyle and I still want to show you love. So she eventually adapted, but you just have to hold strong in your choices, no matter what they may be, whether it's about your food choice or your boundary in business or what you'll tolerate in a relationship.
The other part that's really important is to make sure that when you make something for somebody, make the recipe good. Like, knock them over with the flavor. They should be talking about that the next day when they go wherever, what they're doing without you. They should be saying, that was some of the best. Dude, you should try this food I had last night. That was so, I don't know what they did to it. They said they were vegan. I don't believe them. The food was so good, it knocked my socks off. I got to get the recipe. You want to be having food with people like that. You know, when you can inspire someone else to just add something better to their food, maybe change it up a little bit, you're doing something significant, no matter what it is that you believe in. Anytime you can add a little extra pizzazz to somebody's life, if you're not eating really good food and you come over and hang out with us and suddenly we blow you away with the thing, that's going to impact you. You're going to be like, man, I don't normally eat stuff that's that flavor. That was restaurant quality. That was really good. And so it changes things. And so anytime you can add a little piece of that, it's not an argument that I was having. I'm not sending people a bunch of weird books and documentaries and stuff, trying to tell them to do something. I never want to be that person. I'm not trying to be confrontational. Let people make their own decisions. What I'm trying to do is offer information if somebody asks me, which is what's happened these days. All those people who originally said, you guys are silly, have now said, what have you been doing? How does it work? Where do you guys buy your groceries? Like, what do I do here? How can I do the same kind of thing? And so it's super important to always hold that space. You're just offering good ideas. Just offering good ideas, good meals, good conversation, good love. That's what it's all about. Anything more than that, and you've wasted your time.
Oh, so beautiful, Chris. I just love you so much. But I do want you to be that guy because you are an Aquarius. So whoop whoop, it's Aquarius season. Shout out to all my Aquariuses, you little book reading knowledge bears. I want to know, because you read a book at least a week. You are so knowledgeable. What would be your top book and documentary recommendations for people who are interested in learning more about this plant-based lifestyle?
If you're looking for something that's on the health side, if you're saying, I got health issues I want to take care of, maybe diet can help me, there's a couple books I recommend. The first one is How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. That's one of the best. He talks about breast cancer. He talks about all the kinds of like regular things, all the reasons we normally die, heart disease, all that. And he talks about the scientific studies based on all of his research that, what did they say? And a lot of it's about plant-based eating. So really interesting book. The second one also has a good website. They have a magazine. Some of their recipes aren't amazing. I'll say that, to be totally transparent. But Forks Over Knives. Forks Over Knives has a documentary. They also have a book. They literally have everything.
They're oil-free, so that probably plays a factor into the flavor a little.
That's more of a plant-based diet. That's more of the whole food, plant-based, no oil diet, which outside of raw is probably the most hardcore, probably one of the most healthy. It'll make you feel really good, but at the same time, you've eliminated almost every single restaurant you can go to. So social events are different. You have to we did that for a good while. We
literally would show up stone cold with our water and be like, we're good. Like, we ate beforehand. No, thank you. But luckily now there's just more options and we've found a balance in, like, we'll eat this burger prepared at a restaurant once in a while.
Yeah, it's everything's moderation. It's so important. I think we don't realize if we're always hardcore all the time and we don't give ourselves any leeway. I mean, there's some merit to that, but at the same time, you want to be that person who people like being around, because the relationships that you build with people are so important. And so you always want to be thinking is, how often can I really do this? Like, is it going to impact my health if I do it once every 2 weeks? Is it if I do it once a month? And do it big during those days. Like, be with those people and enjoy stuff. It's so important to get out of our head and get away from that, which is not usual for me.
I know you sampled every single cake at that wedding engagement.
I did, because I've decided I'm hardcore with myself 110% of the time.
Okay, and let's be honest, when have we ever been to an engagement party that had full vegan options?
It almost, I know it wasn't for us. I know it was for them, but it almost felt like someone built it for us. I mean, it had
I could have
everything.
cried every time I turned the corner and there was vegan cake balls, vegan king cake, vegan chantilly cake, vegan cheese and nachos. I was like, oh my God.
I will tell you, there's a benefit to being a little bit different than most people. As almost everyone knows, Britt and I are covered in tattoos. And the amount of conversations that we get on tattoos and what tattoos are meaningful to people, and when they lost their brother and they got this tattoo because of that, it opens so many conversations. Being vegan or having a different kind of way of living that's a little bit even outside the norm. I mean, I know more people know about it these days, but it's still not the accepted
We're on the
thing.
fringe.
It's you have different conversations. You have people concerned about their health. You have people who open up to you about problems and issues that they have. It's different. Life becomes different when you'll be a little bit vulnerable about what it is on the inside that you're doing as well. And so I think coming out and being your authentic self and coming out and being who you really want to be is so important in this year. And if plant-based is one of those things that you really want to try, it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I think it's good to get blood draws at the doctor to figure out where your markers are, to figure out if it's the right diet for you. I think it's super important to get educated, like we mentioned the documentaries and stuff. And I think it's super important to give yourself leeway. You're going to screw up. And we've eaten meat multiple times. We've eaten meat we didn't mean to. Sometimes you go to Chipotle, they accidentally put half your burrito full of steak, and you take that first bite and you're like, this tastes different to me. It happens.
Why is it so fucking chewy?
It happens. And so it's important to get that out of your head that, you're some sort of Puritan, you're going to help the world. That's silly. It's so much easier to just live and let live and do whatever's working for you. I feel healthier now than I've ever felt in my whole life. I'm more in shape than I've been in a really long time. I'm strong, especially for my body weight. I can move very quickly. I'm more flexible. It's like everything that I've wanted to be, I've become. And I think that dieting has been such a huge part of that, and being extremely mindful about what it is that I'm intaking all the time. And to make sure that I'm staying hydrated, to make sure that I'm eating the right foods, the calories, getting the right nutrients in my body, tracking yourself. And it's so important to be thinking about that, especially as we age. It becomes more and more important. Because am I getting the right amount of stuff? Am I getting the right things? Not to be neurotic about it. There's something to be said about if you're so meticulous and neurotic about every single thing, it makes life not fun anymore. But there's definitely a balance where you can do a little bit of both, where you can give yourself a little bit of leeway and know that you don't have to be perfect all the time, but at the same time, strive to be a little bit better. Not at the price of, well, I didn't do good today. And that's not what I mean. I mean, just that you wake up in the morning with the attitude of, you know what? Let's get it today. Not, oh, I'll do better than yesterday. I did not as good yesterday. That's not it. It's all about thinking, I'm going to kill it. Let's get it. Let's do it. I'm going to do better. I know I am. Let's go. And being excited about what it is that you're doing.
Just giving yourself permission to try again and try again and try again, and eventually something will click where it feels natural and you don't have to think so much anymore. All this quote dieting feels rigid and feels like, oh, I have to do something different. It feels uncomfortable. But no matter which way you look at it, we're all on a diet. It's just what we're choosing to intake. And so if we can be consistent with the things that bring us more energy, the things that light us up, that make us feel good, then that's a win in my book.
And I think that when you start to realize that so much of the complicated things that you love, so much of the foods where you're like, man, there's no way I can get this healthy. People have already figured out. People are so smart. People have figured out so many ways to make so many things, to light up our palate, to also do good things on the inside of our bodies. Nutrition and health aren't as complicated as we've made it. I think that when we get back to our roots, when we get the sunlight, when we get plenty of exercise, when we are eating the right foods from the ground and everything, I think things start to change. And I think this, because we feel a little bit better, we do a little bit better. And so we can make really big shifts in our life when we start to focus on what is our health doing? How do we really feel inside? How do our bodies feel? How are our joints move? And taking a little bit of not only inventory of that, but deciding what is a game plan that I can do to make something actually happen.
This topic just lights me up so much. I'll never forget when we transitioned from being paleo to vegan while we were CrossFit competitors. We were doing an array of different types of supplements, from hydrogen peroxide therapy to this alkaline living, and my energy levels were through the roof. We would get through those intense, insane workouts, and I'd pop right back up and be like, okay, what's next? Let's go for it. It's insane how much you can generate energy through what you choose to put in your body, but you do have to educate yourself.
Yeah, the last thing I want to leave you with is something that's really important for anyone changing big diets, and maybe everybody. And that is that there are a couple supplements that you pretty much have to get. Again, you can get these tested, but a couple supplements. I'm just going to leave you with these ideas. And that is, you want to be looking at B12. They make 2 different types of B12. They make cyanocobalamin. Don't want that one. They make methylcobalamin. That's the one we like. You also need to be getting a little bit of vitamin D. Should be getting out D3. But you need to be outside.
Yeah, go outside first 20 minutes of the day.
Getting the sunlight is so massively important. The other thing, for some people, you may have iron issues. You need to look into that. Where there's some extra ways that you can get iron or iodine. Find those out for yourself. Find out what it is that your body tolerates. You'll know how you start to feel. You need to be taking an inventory of what it is that's going on in your body. The other thing that a lot of people are deficient in right now, and not just vegans, but it is magnesium. A lot of us, for some reason, I guess the soils now are more depleted of magnesium than before, but we're deficient for whatever that means. I love taking Epsom salts. You can get magnesium sprays. You can also get it through foods. That's possible as well. What's important, that do not take Epsom salts if for some reason you're diabetic. It's the only kind of person that shouldn't be taking Epsom salts. Everybody else, we're doing over here twice a week Epsom salts. Just get that extra. And from what I've read, you can take really big doses of B12 once a week. So it's not something you have to take every day. It's not something that you have to really remember that much. This is something that can be easy. So again, don't make everything hard. It can be really basic. And don't stress yourself out. We're all going to fail. You just pick yourself right back up and you do it again. Whatever diet you're on, whatever you end up wanting to be on, if you want to lose weight, whatever it is, make the changes that you know you need to make and just keep moving forward.
Oh, this has been so fun. I'm just so grateful to share this conversation with you. And I'd love to know what your takeaway or question or aha was. Hit us up on Instagram at The Elevated Life Club and let us know if you enjoyed this podcast by leaving a review below. We appreciate you tuning in to the Elevated Life podcast. Cheers for 10 years of being vegan and plant-based. Woohoo! It's crazy that it's been an entire decade. I never would have guessed that the decision we made 10 years ago would still be current in our life today. So what decision could you make, whether it has anything to do with your health or not? What decision can you make today that just might impact your life 10 years from now? Have the courage to just throw out the processed food, or say yes, or move across the state, or whatever you feel called to do. Make that change now, because your future self in 10 years will thank you. Oh, and one last thing. Since this Aquarian's birthday is coming up on February 7th, I'm going to do a very special interview episode on the podcast where I ask Chris all the questions. So if you have a question for Chris that you are dying to ask, let me know by reaching out on Instagram and sending me a DM with all your burning questions, and I'll be asking him later this month on the podcast. Until then, we'll catch you next week.
Peace.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life podcast. If you loved this episode, please share that love by leaving us a 5-star review and spreading the good vibes on social. You can tag us at The Elevated Life Club. Want more wisdom from us? Become an elevator by joining us inside our monthly membership club at theelevatedlifeclub.com. to discover mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a live group coaching masterclass, guided meditations, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
It has all the tools, coaching, and community you need to level up, progress every month, and keep going in every area of your life consistently over the long term.
Join us in the club and start your transformation today by signing up at theelevatedlifeclub.com.